David Guetta, bonjour, ça va? How are you today? All good?
I'm good, ça va très bien, merci. Et
Well,
toi?
that was the full extent of my French. I know et toi means and you, and I'm good, but we're going to have to draw a line on it there. I was just trying to show off. Let's Love is the new track with Sia. Your ninth collaboration with Sia, a proper musical marriage that really seems to work. I have to ask, like, Titanium, when you did it with her back in 2011, was my first introduction to Sia. When was the first time you became introduced to her?
Well, she was doing some super indie stuff before that I really liked. And that's how I got to know her. But I think she was scared of going pop, you know, and the first time we worked together, we wrote Titanium, and I thought that was like insane. And the way she was sounding was insane. So, first we were doing this for another artist, and she, you know, she didn't want to stay on the record, but I really begged her to stay, because I'm like, listen, like, no one is going to sound better than you. It's just impossible. So, you know, finally she stayed on the record, and then, you know, I think that maybe changed her perspective a little bit, and she was not so scared of pop anymore. And you know, this was a record that changed my life. I think it changed hers too, and since we never stopped working together.
There's a total 80s vibe to this, and as an 80s kid, I'm totally here for it. Anything on that vibe, I'm 100% involved. Give me all that synth wave, give me that Miami Vice vibe. I just want it.
And I met it in Miami.
Oh, really?
I was completely in the Miami Vice inspiration.
Amazing. Well, that's what I wanted to ask. That was this something that you set out to make from the start, or did it just develop in the studio? How did it work?
No, actually we wrote a ballad together. Like, I texted her, I really want to make a happy song about going through this together and not against each other. There's so much tensions in America. It's really crazy. Can we just make a happy song? And she said, yeah, I love this concept. I sent her some simple ballad piano chords, and she wrote a ballad. It was never written like this at the beginning. And then being in Miami, thinking like, oh, I want to make something super happy, and probably, you know, the 80s were the moment of the feel-good, happy choruses. And also, I love synth waves, you know. I'm a big fan of the analog sound from the first synths. So, yeah, it was perfect. And I produced it like this. She was actually very surprised when I sent it back to her.
That's something I wanted to ask you about, because you've worked with so many big names. How much involvement would you generally have on, say, the lyrics side of things? Because it's always fascinated by me when it comes to like big commercial dance hits. It's your name on the tin. Obviously, there's a big name collaborator there as well. But it must be quite hard to turn around to somebody like Justin Bieber or Kid Cudi and be like, don't really think that line works there. You know, like, would you kind of leave them in charge of lyrics, or?
Well, it depends who. First, most artists don't write their songs. They are singers, and they bring a lot, of course, by the way they're singing it. But usually I go to an artist with a song that is already written, and sometimes they ask me to change some lyrics. But if it's Sia, no, I'm not gonna tell her change this or change that. Or if it's Kid Cudi, no, I'm not. No. But it happens very often, yes, that I would say, oh, I'm not sure about this part. And also, there's something interesting with the way I'm working, and they actually like this, because I'm French, and I was raised listening to American music or British music, not understanding the words.
Oh, wow.
And this is really influential on the way I've learned how to make songs, because I know what it is not to understand the words. And I know that certain words translate internationally, even to people that don't speak English. So I'm always trying to, when I'm with a songwriter, I'm always trying to tell them, you know, I'm back to my shoes of when I couldn't speak good English. Can we pick a few easy words that people would understand, even if they're not good in English, you know?
I get that. So it's kind of like an international understanding, regardless of language
Exactly.
abilities. It's really interesting viewpoint. Just speaking of American music, there, that's what I wanted to throw it back to, because something that I've always credited you with in conversation with other people is that when you did "Sexy Bitch" with Akon, that changed the landscape of commercial music in my eyes forever, because it was the real first merging of a European dance sound hooking up with a hip hop or an R&B artist of the US, and so like many copycats came after. And it really, like, as someone who works in radio and is, you know, inherently aware of the commercial music landscape, did you realize at the time just how big a deal that was, or was it only afterwards when you look back? Like, when you were making it, did you think there's nobody else doing this kind of thing? It was such a niche.
Yes, absolutely. This was the challenge of this moment of my life. You know, I always loved urban music, and at the same time, I was always into electronic. And at the time, I was listening to a lot of Dutch house music that also had a little bit of that, I don't know, like hood vibe, you know,
Mm.
but just that it was four on the floor, you know, like a G house a little bit, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I could make this more melodic, you know. I could use this type of drums, but come with the type of melodies that I love, you know. And it was quite a risk. Actually, by the way, I was killed by the scene for doing this.
Of course.
It was terrible, and like I had so many haters for doing this because they would consider that I was like a treasure to the culture or something crazy like this. And well, 10 years after, everybody's doing it now. But at the time, yes, it was not very welcome.
I remember having a very interesting interview with an underground, internationally famous DJ who shall remain nameless. And this is going back maybe 10 years ago. And we spoke about your success. And he said he wished you every success, but he said, look, the music is not for me. I just don't play it. And I was able to turn around and pull him and say, well, you did actually play it, because you played it during the BBC Essential Mix in Ibiza in 2006. You played a remix of David Guetta's, and it was the Joe T. Vanelli mix of Love Don't Let Me Go. And this DJ was very surprised to learn they had played it then. And it was almost just like, you know, they weren't aware at the time of what it was set to become. And, you know, at that stage, they were like, oh, I don't play that music. I'm not into that music. But 4 or 5 years previous, there they were on the Essential Mix, you know, which I thought was hilarious. But
Yes, this happens a lot.
well, listen, your Jack Back alias is a real throwback to those underground sounds. That track Grenade from a few years ago was an absolute beast of a thing. There's a real early noughties terrace at space vibe to that sound, I always thought. That's what it kind of reminded me of, you know? When you're in the studio making stuff like that, do you have to rein yourself in sometimes so that it doesn't veer into David Guetta territory, so it doesn't sound too commercial and you kind of want to keep it underground? Is it hard to keep those worlds separate in the studio?
Yes, it is. It is, because sometimes, you know, I have a very pop ear.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, sometimes when I do Jack Back, I want to make it bigger, but then I have to refrain myself from doing this, you know. But I was also a house DJ for many, many years. You know, I was playing underground parties for so many years. So I love this. I absolutely love house music, and or even some other type of music that there's right now. All the melodic techno stuff I love. You know what Taylor is playing, the Arbat records. I love all of this.
Do you ever wish you could just kind of turn up at an old underground club like the Rex or somewhere and play a 500 capacity gig, you know, unnamed, just show up and play some records?
Actually, I did this, and this is exactly why I created Jack Back, because one day you're talking about the Rex. So for people to know, the Rex is like the legendary techno club in Paris, and very, very underground. But I started at the Rex, and you know, people don't necessarily know that, of course. So one day they've asked me, and that was before Jack Back. They've asked me to come play and to play an underground set there the way I was doing it when I started and when I was playing there. But the party didn't go well because there was like thousands and thousands of people outside that couldn't get in. And then the people that were inside didn't understand why I was not playing. I got a fitting and titanium and all of this. So this is actually, it's funny that you mentioned the Rex, because it's that specific gig that made me want to create an alias, so that when I play a Jack Black show, you know, I'm honest to the people. They know what to expect, and they know they're not going to have my hits. You know, so that's why I created it.
Okay, that's really interesting. I've been to the Rex twice. I got in once but I had to queue the previous night because I didn't have a ticket. So I waited for like 3 hours and then I was left out in the cold.
Oh, I'm
and I went back the
sorry.
next night. What a serious club though. Speaking of all places like that, during lockdown, something I did after being inspired by watching Carl Cox's live streams, I set up my old Technics and I dug out my vinyl and I went back at a mix. And man, that is hard stuff. It's a muscle memory that is tough to recover when you've been away from it for a long time. Can you remember the last time you would have dug out the vinyl and had a bit of a mix like that?
Oh my God, such a long time ago. Because, you know, I'm always into technology. So the minute Pioneer came with the CDJ, I embraced it immediately and started to play with CDs just because there was more technical possibilities. So to me, it was like, why would you, to be honest, like, I know some people are going to hate on me for saying this. Like, I don't get it. Why would you play vinyls today? It doesn't make sense to me, you know? And I know there's a big culture around this and it's so cool to play vinyls. Like, I personally don't get it. Why are you going to break your back carrying all those heavy records? I did this for 15 years of my life, you know? So if I can come with, you know, a USB that is the equivalent of the box. I think some people don't understand when they say, oh, he plays from a USB. What does that? It's so ridiculous. A USB is just a box full of records, you know.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that it's pre-recorded. So no, I don't regret vinyls. There was a certain charm into it. I'm not going to deny it. But
especially in terms of the collecting, you know what I mean? In terms of going to the shop and, you know, maybe
yeah,
the only
and
copy
the
shop.
visual, it was an object.
There's
And
a
this is
beauty in
something
it.
I really like, you know. I kind of miss this, I agree. But technically, what we can do now with the CDJ system or even other system, you know, like Serato or stuff like this, even though I don't use it, the possibilities creatively are way bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So that what we could do with vinyls, you know, and if you want the vinyl touch, you can have a vinyl controller. It's but I mean, this is very personal. I respect everyone that want to play vinyl. But yes, it would be fun for me to try and see if I can still do it. Because
Really should. Trust me, it's a jungle out there. It's that muscle memory. It's slow to come back. Speaking of technology, last question I'll talk to you about. During lockdown, you raised quite a lot of money during your United at Home live streams, over $1.5 million for COVID-19 charities. Given your lifestyle in terms of like playing to large, massive arenas and crowds nowadays, did you find it a strange instance to perform just to a camera? And also with so many eyes, like 50 million views in total, that's a lot of eyes watching your every single move. And you know as well as I do from being a DJ that in a live situation, you can get away with a lot more. If
this is so true.
Fluffs. Did you feel the pressure when performing just to a camera and knowing that?
Yes,
No?
you're right. Okay, first I had a trick. My trick was that the first show I did was in Miami, and it was in the middle of lots of towers. So people were on their balconies. It was not like a real crowd, but psychologically, I was like, okay, I'm playing for this guy and this girl. Ooh, this girl is hot. She can dance. You know, and I was still almost like being in a club, you know. And this helped me. The second time was in New York City, on the top of the Rock, which was unbelievable in terms of views. But then I had only people on Zoom, and yes, I was missing the crowd. It's different. And yes, you're right. You can make small mistakes
Mm.
that people don't really see when you're in a club, but when it's filmed, it's on YouTube forever.
Yeah, and there's nothing worse than a crowd of DJs just waiting to jump on another DJ for a little.
Oh my
Mix, you know?
God, I hate this.
You're going back to Ibiza in 2021. Hi Ibiza, the latest installment of Fuck Me I'm Famous. What else can we expect in 2021? Is there loads more new music to come that's been written in lockdown, or?
Man, I'm making beats every day. So, I think we're good for 10 years. I have so much new music. It's like ridiculous.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, I wish you all the best with it. Stay safe to you and yours, and I wish you all the continued success, David. All the best, all right?
Thank you. Thank you, man. Thank you so
Have a good
much.
one.
Bye.